my daughter Lily, has always been a magnet for the unusual. From the moment she could talk, she seemed to attract the kind of kids who were different, not in a bad way necessarily, but in a way that made you raise an eyebrow. I've got a dozen stories about her strange little friends, but there's one that still gives me chills when I think about it. It happened when she was in the 5th grade, right after we moved to a new town. Lily had always been a social butterfly, so I wasn't worried about her making friends. She was the kind of kid who could strike up a conversation with anyone, and within a week of starting at her new school, she was already talking about her best friend, a girl named Clara. I was relieved. Moving is hard on kids, and I was glad Lily was adjusting so well. The first time I met Clara's mom, Sarah, I was struck by how normal she seemed. She was friendly, polite, and even offered to host a sleepover for the girls that weekend. I agreed, thinking it would be good for Lily to bond with her new friend. But looking back, I should have trusted my gut. There was something off about Clara, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. The sleepover started off fine. I dropped Lily off at Clara's house, a quaint little place on the edge of town. Sarah greeted me at the door with a warm smile, and the girls ran off to Clara's room, giggling and whispering like kids do. I stayed for a bit, chatting with Sarah over coffee. She seemed like a great mom, attentive, kind, and genuinely interested in her daughter's happiness. But there was something in her eyes, a flicker of unease, that I couldn't ignore. When I left, Lily was happily playing with Clara, and I drove home feeling reassured. But that night, I got a call from Sarah around midnight. Her voice was shaky, and she asked if I could come pick up Lily. She didn't explain why, just said that Lily was upset and wanted to come home. I was confused. Lily had never asked to leave a sleepover before, but I didn't ask questions. I just got in the car and drove over. When I arrived, Sarah met me at the door. She looked pale, almost sickly, and her hands were trembling. Lily was sitting on the couch, clutching her backpack, her face streaked with tears. I knelt down and asked her what was wrong, but she just shook her head and said, "I want to go home." Sarah didn't offer an explanation, and I didn't press her. I just thanked her for hosting and took Lily home. On the drive back, Lily was unusually quiet. When we got home, I tucked her into bed and sat with her until she fell asleep. The next morning, I tried to ask her about what had happened, but she clammed up, refusing to talk about it. A few days later, Lily finally opened up. She told me that Clara had been acting strange all evening. At first, it was little things, whispering to herself, staring off into space, laughing at nothing. But then, as they were getting ready for bed, Clara had led Lily to the basement door. She told Lily there was something she wanted to show her, something secret. Lily, curious but uneasy, followed her. The basement was dark, and Clara didn't turn on the lights. She just stood at the top of the stairs, staring down into the blackness. Then, in a voice that didn't sound like her own, she said, "He wants to meet you." Lily froze. She said the air felt heavy, like it was pressing down on her, and she could hear something moving in the darkness below. She turned and ran back upstairs, grabbed her things, and begged Sarah to call me. I was horrified. I called Sarah to ask about the incident, but she brushed it off, saying Clara had just been playing a prank. But her voice was strained, and she sounded like she was on the verge of tears. I didn't push her, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. A few weeks later, Clara stopped coming to school. I asked Lily about it, and she said Clara had moved away suddenly. I tried to reach out to Sarah, but her phone was disconnected. And when I drove by their house, it was empty. It was like they had vanished overnight. I didn't think much about it after that. Lily seemed to move on, and I convinced myself it was just a strange, isolated incident. But then, a few months ago, something happened that brought it all rushing back. Lily is in high school now, and she's been staying late after school for drama club rehearsals. One evening, she called me, her voice trembling, and asked if I could pick her up. When I arrived, she was waiting outside the school, her face pale and drawn. She didn't say much on the drive home, but when we got there, she finally told me what had happened. She said she had been in the school basement, helping to move some props, when she heard a voice calling her name. It was faint, almost a whisper, but it was unmistakable. She followed the sound, thinking it was one of her friends playing a joke, but the further she went, the more the air seemed to thicken, just like it had in Clara's basement. Then she saw something, a shadow moving in the darkness. It wasn't human, but it wasn't an animal either. It was just wrong. She turned and ran, and that's when she called me. I didn't know what to say. I wanted to tell her it was her imagination, that she was just remembering what had happened with Clara and letting her fears get the best of her. But deep down, I knew better. Something had followed her from that basement. Something that had been waiting for her. Since then, strange things have been happening in our house. Doors creak open on their own. The temperature drops suddenly, and at night, I hear whispering coming from the basement. Lily refuses to go down there, and honestly, I don't blame her. I've thought about calling someone, a priest, a paranormal investigator, anyone who might be able to help, but I don't even know where to start. The worst part is, I can't shake the feeling that this is my fault. If I had listened to my instincts, if I had asked more questions, maybe none of this would have happened. But now it's too late. Whatever was in Clara's basement, it's here now, and I don't know how to make it go away. When my wife and I bought our old Victorian house, we knew it would need some work. The previous owners had left it in a state of disrepair, and we spent months renovating, uncovering hidden treasures and forgotten relics as we went. But there was one thing we found that I wish we had left buried. It was in the attic, tucked away in a corner behind a stack of old boxes. At first, I thought it was just another piece of junk, a large, ornate mirror with a tarnished frame. But as I wiped away the dust, I realized it was beautiful in a haunting sort of way. The glass was perfectly clear, and the frame was intricately carved with strange symbols that seemed to shift and change when you looked at them too long. I decided to keep it. It felt like a piece of the house's history, and I thought it would make a nice addition to our bedroom. But as soon as I brought it downstairs, things started to change. At first, it was small things, objects moving on their own, strange noises in the night, a feeling of being watched. I told myself it was just the house settling or my imagination running wild. But then my son, Jack, started acting strange. Jack was 7 at the time, a sweet, curious boy who loved to explore. But after we brought the mirror into the house, he became withdrawn and quiet. He started having nightmares, screaming in the middle of the night about the man in the mirror. I tried to comfort him, telling him it was just a bad dream, but he insisted it was real. He said the man talked to him, told him things, showed him things. I didn't know what to do. I thought about getting rid of the mirror, but something stopped me. It was like I was drawn to it, like it had some kind of hold over me. I found myself staring into it for hours, losing track of time, feeling like I was falling into the glass. Then, one night, I woke up to find Jack standing in front of the mirror. He was whispering to himself, his voice low and guttural, like it wasn't his own. I called his name, but he didn't respond. When I touched his shoulder, he turned to me, and his eyes were black, empty. He smiled a cold, cruel smile and said, "She's coming." I grabbed him and pulled him away from the mirror, holding him tightly as he screamed and thrashed. When he finally calmed down, he had no memory of what had happened. But I knew it wasn't over. The next day, I called a priest. He came to the house and performed an exorcism, but as soon as he started, the mirror shattered, sending shards of glass flying across the room. The priest said it was a sign that the entity had been banished, but I wasn't so sure. Since then, things have been quiet. Jack seems back to normal, and the strange occurrences have stopped. But I can't shake the feeling that something is still here, watching, waiting. And sometimes late at night, I swear I can see a figure in the corner of my eye, standing where the mirror used to be. I don't know what we unleashed, but I know this. Some doors are better left unopened, and some mirrors are better left broken. Our house has always been old, but it wasn't until we started renovating that we realized just how much history it held. The walls seemed to whisper secrets, and the floors creaked with the weight of memories. But there was one room that always felt different. The study. It was a small room at the back of the house, with a single window that looked out over the garden. When we first moved in, it was filled with old furniture and boxes of forgotten belongings. We cleared it out, intending to turn it into a cozy reading nook, but something about the room always felt off. It started with the whispers. At first, I thought it was just the wind or maybe the pipes. But the more time I spent in the room, the more I realized it was something else. The whispers were faint, almost imperceptible, but they were there, and they were coming from the walls. I tried to ignore it, telling myself it was just my imagination. But then, my wife started hearing it too. She said it sounded like someone was talking, just on the other side of the wall. We tried to laugh it off, but the more we listened, the more we realized it wasn't just random noise. The whispers were forming words, sentences, even names. One night, I was alone in the study, reading by the light of a single lamp. The whispers had been particularly loud that day, and I was trying to drown them out with the sound of my own thoughts. But then I heard it, a voice, clear as day, calling my name. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. The voice was soft, almost gentle, but it sent a chill down my spine. I looked around the room, but there was no one there, just me and the whispers. I tried to convince myself it was nothing, but the voice kept calling, over and over, until I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed my book and fled the room, slamming the door behind me. The next day, I told my wife what had happened. She didn't believe me at first, but when she saw how shaken I was, she agreed to help me investigate. We spent hours in the study, listening to the whispers, trying to make sense of them. But the more we listened, the more confused we became. The voices were speaking in a language we didn't understand, but there was something familiar about it, something that made my skin crawl. We decided to call in a professional, a paranormal investigator who had experience with haunted houses. He spent a week in our home, recording the whispers, analyzing them, trying to find a pattern. But in the end, even he was stumped. The whispers were real, but they didn't seem to be coming from any known source. It was like the walls themselves were alive, speaking in a language that no one could understand. We thought about moving, but the idea of leaving the house felt wrong. It was our home, and we had put so much work into it. But the whispers were driving us crazy. We couldn't sleep, couldn't think, couldn't escape the constant noise. Then one day, I had an idea. I remember reading about a technique called white noise, where you play a constant sound to drown out other noises. I decided to try it in the study, hoping it would mask the whispers. It worked for a while. The white noise drowned out the whispers, and for the first time in months, the study felt peaceful. But then, something strange happened. The white noise started to change. At first, it was subtle, a slight shift in tone, a faint echo. But then, it started to form words, just like the whispers had. I turned off the white noise, but the words didn't stop. They were coming from the walls, louder and clearer than ever before. And this time, I could understand them. They were telling me to leave. I don't know how much longer I can stay in this house. The whispers are getting louder, more insistent. They're not just in the study anymore. They're everywhere. In the walls, in the floors, in the air itself. It's like the house is alive, and it wants us gone. My wife and I have tried everything. Prayers, blessings, even an exorcism. But nothing works. The whispers just keep coming, louder and louder, until I feel like I'm going insane. Last night, I had a dream. I was standing in the study, and the walls were closing in around me. The whispers were deafening, and I could feel them pressing against my skin, like they were trying to suffocate me. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. And then I woke up. I don't know what to do. I can't stay here, but I can't leave either. The house won't let me. It's like it's holding me here, trapping me in its walls. I don't know how much longer I can hold on. But one thing's for sure, I'm not alone. The whispers are here, and they're not going away.